This is about a controversial topic, but one that affects us all. And I've given this talk probably about 3 years ago at the Bonn Code Meetup. So you can find the slides on my website. And yeah, let's get right into it. And just to preface this, there's many ways to do code reviews. There's not one golden way to do it. It also depends who you are doing code reviews with. But this is also a good primer to start a discussion. So here's the agenda. I'm going to talk about what we want to achieve with code reviews, tips for reviewers, tips for authors, and finally, different ways of conducting code reviews. This is based on my experience as well as the Google engineering practices. It's a pretty cool website where they publish comprehensive information about how they want to do code reviews. All right, so what do we want to achieve with code reviews? Here's 2 snippets from the Google engineering practices. The primary purpose of code review is that the overall health of the code base is improving over time. So even if you have like a pull request that does not fully implement the feature yet, as long as it doesn't break anything or it doesn't include some really hacky thing that will actually be used in production, you can merge it already. It's better than having long-living branches. And secondly, an approved change will definitely improve the overall code health of the system being worked on, even if the change is not perfect. Of course, this is only for the time when you merge the PR. If I look at PRs that I merged 3 months ago, I might think, well, what the hell did I do there? So yeah, that's from the standard of code reviews. Now let's get into tips for reviewers. You see a little code reviewer down in the corner so that you know that the slides are about reviewers. And so what should you look for when reviewing a pull request? There's several things to look out for. There's design. So how is the code designed? And from a like abstraction perspective, for example, do the abstractions make sense? Do you even need them? And for us front-enders also, does the user interface actually look pleasing and is nice to use? Style, you probably have some code standards. Does the pull request adhere to that? This is something that you should definitely automate using linters and other tools. Naming, are there variables like A1, B2, blah, blah? Make sure to watch out for those. Consistency, so does the code fit into the existing code before? Does it not diverge completely from the existing patterns that are in the code that was adapted? Tests, did the author write tests? And if so, do they actually make sense? Are the tests not testing themselves? Will they break if the implementation actually changes? So there are also these fake tests that look like they're a test, but actually you can change the code as much as you like, and the tests will still run green. We do not want to have those. Is there documentation when needed? So I'm a fan of documentation. Some people say, well, good code explains itself. But what I think is that the code itself is very good at presenting the what, and the only tool that we really have to explain the why of your code is function names and variables. And sometimes you just build some crazy algorithm where some prosa, some prose would be pretty nice to have. So if you look at my code, you'll definitely find some comments down the line. So maybe if it's related to some issue on the library that you're using, I always add a link to that issue, for example. Yagni, you ain't gonna need it. So reviewers can also help to prevent merging things that we might never use or the user might not ever need, and that can save us some code that we need to maintain in the long run. Functionality, very important one. So if you are reviewing the code and you actually know what the problem is about, which would be great, then also check that the user functionality is actually addressing the problem that we're trying to solve. Most authors already do a very good job of that. I'm sure all of you at LeanIX do, but this is something that you can also help out with. And lastly, and this is a very important one for me, look for good things. So we write code all day, and sometimes I'm just really impressed with what some of my colleagues write, and then I really want to point it out in the pull request. I'm happy when people do that for me, and it also makes me happy to do that for others. This one's also very important. Do code reviews as soon as possible. Feedback loops are very important for engineers. If you request a review from a colleague and they take forever to actually start with it, you do a context switch, you start working on the next topic. In Team Thrust, I would argue that we have the culture of when somebody requests a review, you get it as soon as possible. Yeah, maybe there's a delay of 15 minutes to just finish what you've been doing just now, but yeah, I'm a big fan of this. Okay, that's it with tips for reviewers. Let's get into the tips for authors. When you have large pull requests, you can see it up here. There's 125 lines added and 494 removed. That's pretty large already. Especially when doing asynchronous style of code reviews, so it's only happening in the pull request, then I like to provide context in the PR, because when a PR is super large, and especially depending on your commit style, I just like to have some introduction. Like if you look on the Pathfinder web pull request that I've authored, you find you could probably print a book from all the stuff that I've written in my pull requests, but it's fun. It helps me reflect on the code that I've written. So sometimes I write the thing and then I realize, wait, that sucks. I'm going to do that differently. So yeah, that's definitely something I like to do and also recommend. So you should pay attention how you commit. The best commit style for me as a reviewer is if you use small commits and explain the why in your commit message. Do not use commit messages like implemented fact sheet repository for loading data. So I can see that from the code already. That's already in the code changes. I want you to tell me why you are doing something. The same goes for a bug fix. Rather than saying fix bug, so when you do a bug fix, you could describe the code change that you did to fix the bug, or you could describe the bug that you were fixing. The latter one is more helpful for me. Minimize the change size. As I said, smaller. If you make small commits, I can actually go through the pull requests commit by commit and re-experience the way that you engineered this full code. Oftentimes I'll use a mixture of both, so going through commit by commit as well as looking at the files changed in total. Use meaningful names in your variables and functions, as I've said before. Communicate on change requests. So if a reviewer gives you a comment on your pull request and you don't reply on it, not in GitHub, not in Slack, not in person, that's not cool. So the reviewer, they take the time to give you the feedback. If it's rude, then that's a different thing. But yeah, try to really pay attention to all the comments. GitHub is sometimes kind of annoying with that, because when you have a lot of commits, they start hiding some of them. But yeah, that shouldn't stop you from trying to address all the comments. And there's even the thing of rather than just resolving a comment after you added a commit, you might have added many commits, add a comment in to the reviewer's comment saying this was fixed in commit X and point a link to that, and then resolve the comment. This also is helpful to reviewers. Value the reviewer's time. There's many ways to do that. For example, reviewing your code before you request a review from the reviewer. So if there's a bunch of unused functions, still commented out code in the pull request when I start reviewing it, that's the first thing that I will comment on. This can be, this does not need to be much to production. And you could have caught that beforehand on your own. This one I learned from a colleague a while back. Don't rely on reviews to spot bugs. Definitely a hot take. So I think we have better tools than reviews to spot bugs. We have unit tests for that. So when I, as an author, write unit tests as I write my code, that's my most powerful tool to discover bugs early before shipping to production. And as a reviewer, I really don't have the capacity to both review your code on a quality level, on a functionality level, and then also help to catch bugs. That is the author's responsibility, to ideally write bug-free code, which doesn't exist, but let's say it that way. And as I've shown before, describe context if needed. This can be done in the pull request description, but also through comments in the code of your pull requests when a comment is directly associated with a place in the code. And lastly, here at LeanIX, we all want to support each other, help each other ship the best product to our customers. If there is repetitively rude behavior in pull requests, do reach out to your manager. But from my experience, the code reviews here are really on a professional level. And yeah, but if you do feel attacked, reach out either to your manager or the person directly, and they can help you resolve that. Okay, so now all the reviewers and authors are good to go. Let's see how they can work together to get this out of the door. I differentiate two types of code reviews. Oh, I didn't realize that you people here always had that overlay in front. Nobody said something, but doesn't matter. So you can hear it from me anyway. Yeah, there's the asynchronous array written on a pull request, and this has some benefits. It's okay. You can't do it unless you exit full screen. So this has a few benefits. It can be done asynchronously. The communication is always documented in the PR. So when you do it in a call or in person, you might do many changes without documenting them, which is fine, but it's a benefit of written on PR that you do have the information to get back to in the future. And here in the arena, it says personal. Actually, there's less in front of that. So this is definitely the less personal way in comparison to in a call or in person. So in a call or in person, you're just less lonely. So this is definitely a much more fun way of doing things if you're a social person. It's not asynchronous, so you both have to be in the call or in a room to do this. And I suggest to still write important change requests that you discuss in the call or in the room on the PR, if you think it's relevant for the generations to come. And these settings also have more chances for questions, because you immediately have the reviewer and the author available. There's no delay between writing a comment and getting a response. One thing I like to remind myself of here is that it's important that the developer, the author, doesn't guide this synchronous style of review too much, because that could actually bias the reviewer to just giving you that green check. Okay, so now we come to the most exciting part for me, because I know all of you do code reviews on a regular basis, and this has worked out really well during the last iteration of this talk. So I want to know, where do you think I was wrong, and what is your goal when doing a code review, and what do you wish developers who request reviews from you would do?